Hi, welcome back to not my gallery, just outside my gallery, because this week we're moving into the countryside. Well, my garden. So here goes. Last week I'd spoken about essentially those there but for the grace of God go I moments. And no sooner had I launched that film into the world than we had another one of those. What we're looking at is my windmill, and it had been making a bit of a noise. We thought it needed some greasing, and then last Saturday the blades of the windmill just sheared off, and that is precisely where they landed. No one has moved them. I mean, no one's moved them because it's bloody heavy. And that really is a there but for the grace of God moment, because if we look at this little structure over there, that's where we put our pump. The windmill's not working, so we have an electric motor that pumps up the water. And the windmill breakage occurred at approximately 10 a.m. And had it been the day before, there's a couple of ifs and buts here, but had it been the day before, and had it happened an hour earlier, then where it fell is precisely where Francisco, our trusty gardener, landscape manager, would have been fiddling around with the motor. As it happens, if you look up there, there's two black cables. The blades severed our internet connection. But quite frankly, had Francisco been down there, or Rita or I, or our little dog, well, it would have severed us. A ghastly thought. And it happened just after talking about there but for the grace of God, go I. But it wasn't the grace of God. Well, that's not what I believe. This accident happened quite simply because over a period of time there was a faulty element to design or the construction, moving parts wear out, and that was the moment when the wind was blowing and the wearing out had hit a critical point. And frankly, if someone had met a ghastly fate in this accident, it really wouldn't have been their fault. It wouldn't have been bad vibes sent out to the universe that led the axle on which it sort of spins, axis, I don't know. It wouldn't have happened because of your personal thinking. Bad vibrations. No, it would have happened just because it happened. And it was good fortune that no one was there. And on the rare occasions that people have these terrible accidents, it is simply bad luck. And we have to deal with it. Well, that's what I believe. Not everyone believes that. Some people believe that it is destiny, that it is preordained, or that there are guardian angels. Hollywood has made much of that sort of line of thinking. And they save us, they spare us from these accidents. Of course, that implies that when these accidents happen, that they haven't spared us. And people might say at that moment that it's all part of God's plan. And again, I'm not sold on that idea, that it is all part of a plan. I think it's yeah, it's just how things roll, and most of us go through our day and this kind of stuff leaves us untouched, because the odds, to be quite honest, if we think that this windmill has been here approximately 8 years, the odds of actually it falling at the moment when someone was there, if we did the quick calculation of how often there is a person standing right at this point, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes on average a day. Probably not. I mean, it might be 10 minutes on a particular day, but only twice a week. So the odds of that windmill kind of falling apart at the precise moment that you are there to suffer the brunt of it, well, the odds are quite slight. Where does that leave us? Well, it does leave me feeling incredibly relieved that the accident didn't do more damage than it did, because it might have. And I suppose when faced with these sort of happenings, it might jolt me into doing more regular maintenance. I mean, to be honest, it was a weekend when quite a lot of stuff happened. The bus we were on broke down. The windmill, well, that fell apart. I had a tooth extracted last week. I mean, it was a few days when it seemed like everything was going wrong. One of those annus horribilis sort of moments. But those too are inevitable. If you calculate the number of years you live, the number of things that go wrong, it's almost inevitable that there will be these little spells when what's going wrong coincides, sort of, and leads you to think that the universe is plotting against you. But it isn't. It's just the way stuff happens. And when we respond to it, I guess all we can do is say, well, is there something I can do? I can do better quality maintenance. I can find a local guy to deal with this, to kind of limit the chance of it happening again in the future. And that's it. That's all I can do. And be grateful that nothing worse happened. There was no tragic or extensive collateral damage. The internet chaps came and fixed it the very next day. They were a bit nervous, I must admit, reattaching the cable, worried that the wind vane part of the windmill might blow off at precisely the moment that they were there. And I can understand their concerns, but I assured them that really that wasn't going to happen. I think mechanically it wasn't going to happen, but well, I just wanted my internet back, and so that's what I said. And I really didn't think anything was going to happen, and well, nothing did. So there we are. I guess tying all that up together, we live in a unpredictable universe, and we need to be grateful for every moment that we have. And when these things happen, we need to remind ourselves, as the Stoics would have it, memento mori. Remember, we will die. And consequently, we don't know when, for the most part. Occasionally there are people for whom it is becomes somewhat more predictable. But for most of us, we simply don't know when that's going to be. So every day we need to make the most of it, use our time well, be grateful for what we have, express our gratitude where it needs to be expressed, and be joyful. And that's it this week. So I trust you are the beneficiary of good fortune and a slightly more stable universe wherever you are. And until next week, from a sunny and windy Brazil, ciao.